Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a starting steps video for the strongest economic start in Victoria 3, which is Great Qing. We are in patch 1.5 live now, and so we will also be discussing some of the new live changes that are appearing in patch 1.5, notably from patch 1.5 to 1.5.5 to patch 1.5.7. That is from the open beta to the live release. There was quite a few buffs in terms of Chinese land as it relates to local prices, which are a huge new thing for patch 1.5. Notably, stuff like Beijing now has iron and coal, in addition to having a coal field, coal mines throughput modifier, positive modifier. Just the entire northern area has a lot more going on in terms of having access to both, coal and iron. There are also a few new state bonuses. For example, Outer Manchuria now has the shipbuilding bonus, so does Zhejiang, and we have a lot of this Eastern Steppe bonus type stuff. And also, very importantly, now there are these river bonuses giving access to MAPI, which we will discuss what MAPI is and why it's important, but this 5% market access price impact does make it possible to give 100% market access price impact, which is good. We have it along both the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, which is going to occupy almost entirely of where you're going to be building, so this is very, very, very strong. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes Great Qing unique. First of all, they're actually the only country in the game that has a unique technology, and it's in production tab, so I don't know why I clicked on the other one, but that's sericulture, which gives 25% silk plantations building throughput. No one else has this in the game, no one has access to it, and so just kind of wanted to point that out. The biggest thing to note about Great Qing is they just have an enormous population. They are going to be the least dependent on immigration, and it does seem in 1.5.7 specifically, migration seems to be particularly worse than 1.5.4, and so, Great Qing might have a little bit of a better feel to it. Now, they have a ton of unique stuff going on in terms of the interest groups. They have a lot of unique interest groups. The first one we're going to talk about is the scholar officials, which notably is quite a bit different. They have the scholar gentry, which is going to, they endorse monarchy and they endorse landed voted autocracy, kind of looking normal, but there's something absent, from the normal kind of thing, which is that they actually don't mind if you go onto agrarianism. Now, we are going to actually go agrarianism early, and agrarianism early on is actually going to be better than laissez-faire. The reason for this is it gives plus 50% aristocrats investment pool contribution efficiency. Since we have so many pops, and they're all in subsistence farms, we are actually getting an enormous amount of reinvestment into the economy from subsistence farms. You can see 65k is going into the investment pool from the subsistence rice paddies. And who are they owned by? They're owned by aristocrats. And so by going agrarianism, we are actually going to really juice up our investment pool in the short term. Also in patch 1.5, getting off of traditionalism as quickly as possible is extremely important. The reason for this is it gives it minus 15% market access price impact. Again, we're going to talk about this modifier more, but getting through this as quickly as possible is going to be absolutely essential. So kind of just coming through in terms of our tech strategy as it relates to this quite closely, I think every country in the game that does not start with stock exchange is going to want to go stock exchange first for this 10% market access price impact. However, Great Qing specifically is the only exception, because I think we're going to want to go romanticism first, because this unlocks our ability to go agrarianism. If we start nat spreading, romanticism after we unpause, we will check. If we start natural spreading this, we'll instead research stock exchange, and if we start nat spreading stock exchange, we'll just be super happy with everything. And so this is kind of unique about the landed gentry as it relates to, what's going on. They do have kind of normal looking IG bonuses. Now, a different IG bonus, the Confucian scholars and the literati are also very interesting in terms of what they support. We will have Confucian, which notably you might notice some missing things here relative to the other countries or the other interest groups, the other devout interest groups, which is they don't care at all about schools or healthcare. And this is also the case with the literati. They will not care at all about schools or healthcare or even, kind of what you are doing in terms of your church and state law. So, for example, they're not supporting total separation or freedom of conscience, which is different with the literati. Confucianism is more of like a philosophical belief, and so more so than like a theological one, and so it makes sense in terms of a simulation. It is quite interesting, but it makes getting off of state religion very hard. But usually the reason you want to go off of state religion is to attract migrants. We have 365 million pops, a million for every day of the year, and so it's much less important that we get off of it as quickly as possible. So total separation is actually not going to be critical, and staying on state religion is going to be pretty good, because the Confucian scholars actually have an extremely good bonus. More on that in a second, but just wanted to point out that, look, nobody supports schools except for the industrialists and the trade unionists, and same with healthcare. No one supports it except for the industrialists and the trade unionists, which is a bit of a departure from normal states of affairs, and these guys will come up quite slowly because in terms of clout is going to be significantly influenced by the fact that we just have a ton of people in sub-farms, and it's going to be very sticky to get the industrialists and trade unionists up, so we will be a little bit backward in that regard, but we have a kind of good setup for it because we have an enormous amount of pops. We don't need to go like total separation. Getting healthcare is going to be a little bit less important, but we do want it in this sort of thing. Now, the Confucian scholars do have a unique bonus, and this is a minus 50% radicals from standard of living decreases, and notably, this bonus can be doubled if they get over 20% clout, which is one of the reasons why state religion is something we're interested in, at least at this point in the game, and so we can get minus 100% radicals from standard of living decreases. So we will completely nuke radicals from standard of living decreases. As standard of living oscillates up and down, we will generate loyalists from it coming up, and then when it comes down, we will generate no radicals, and so we will actually generate a lot of loyalists over the course of the game as a result of this. This is very strong, and it replaces kind of the standard Catholic devout, because now every devout kind of has a standard, but this was the old one in patch 1.4 of 2% or 2.5% pop growth rate, which is less important for us because, again, we already have a lot of souls. We will also have the 10% authority. They also have a unique bonus here. Let's kind of quickly take a look. They do not have the migration. Instead, they have 10% authority, which is not too big a deal. They still have the research speed. Now, on armed forces, they also have a unique bonus, and for this run, we are going to be leaning into this unique bonus, is that they have, okay, the military research speed is now in a different spot, but more importantly, they have minus 15% military goods cost. The theme of this run is we are going to try and see if we can do a military industrial complex, because the way this modifier works, and this modifier is also present on peasant levies, and we're going to stack it, is it allows you to consume the goods and pay less for them, but this is very critically a modifier that creates free money. And the way it works is that the goods are still bought from the military buildings. We don't really have any right now, but if we had an arms industry, it would still be bought at the full price. Let's find an arms industry here in Great Britain. They will still be bought at the full price. So this 2.3k gets paid, into the arms industry, for example, but only roughly 1.7k would actually come out of our treasury. So the difference between the two, like that 600, that is free money, baby. And if it's free, it's for me. This is going to be money that effectively gets injected into the economy for free, because we as the government, normally, if we build construction, we have to pay for the goods, we have to pay for the full price. We're not paying for the full price of small arms. So this means hyper late game, we are going to try a strategy of having a really big military to stimulate and spin more free money into the economy. So this is going to be kind of the plan, and we're going to see if this could work. Currently, you don't really pay that much on military goods anyways. It's a very small portion of the economy, so this might not really be that big a deal. But also, it stacks with this peasant levies modifier, which is going to give minus 25% military goods cost. However, it disallows, it restricts various things, and this restriction might be a little bit too big. It looks like, actually, this new restriction is in 1.5.7. That is restricting us to hussars, and is restricting us to cannon and mobile and irregular and line infantry. We are probably going to have to go off of this, unfortunately, Maybe we don't have to, but I think that we will be able to consume more goods if we go into professional army and overall benefit more from this unique interest group with giving us this minus military goods cost. If we take a look at the rural folk, we kind of have a normal looking thing where it's infrastructure and agriculture, ranches, plantation. Same with the petite bourgeoisie. We just have a normal looking petite bourgeoisie, normal looking industrialists, and normal looking trade unionists. However, very, very unique in the literati, the armed forces, the Confucian scholars, and the scholar officials here for Great Qing. Now, the first thing you want to do in any sort of run is decide if you want to re-roll for ideology reasons for your interest group leaders. We're not going to do that because we have a lot of our guys just stuck on normal, but what we are going to do is we are going to go out of our way to roll. In particular, we are going to need to find a jingoist that has positive popularity. While rolling our initial generals, we've already rolled through a whole bunch of generals, recruiting a bunch, and we are making sure that we do not have anyone with positive popularity in the scholar officials, with the exception of a jingoist here, because we want the jingoist in order to be able to pass laws a little bit easier. I think we actually are going to go professional army kind of early. This new introduction of limiting us to relatively early PMs is going to make it so that, you know, we aren't going to go for this idea of having stacking with the peasant levies here. And so what we need to do, though, is we do start out with one gentleman who has positive popularity that is a scholar official, and that is our admiral here, and he is authoritarian, and so if we exile now, he will become the leader of the IG. And so what we are going to do is we are going to retire this commander, and then we are going to come in here, and we are going to recruit this jingoist gentleman. This jingoist gentleman who does have positive popularity, and then what we will do is we will come into the government, we'll reform the government, we'll put in, I suppose, the armed forces, and then we'll take out the scholar officials, we'll click OK, and then we will exile this gentleman here, who's the traditionalist we start off with, and since the only scholar official we have that has positive popularity, and we have quite a few, you know, in all of these now. Since the only one is a jingoist, we will get this guy replaced with a jingoist, and now we have a jingoist who will support us going on to professional army, which we are going to do. And so we will come in here. We are not going to do it immediately, however. We just want to have this set in for later. We are going to have battles eventually, or sometime soon, and this will affect popularity, and so it is easy to roll this popularity thing now. And so the second thing is, we absolutely, as Great Qing, the very first law we have to pass is going on to no social security. We will currently hemorrhage an enormous amount of money to welfare payments as time goes on. We definitely have a lot of problems with unemployment. We don't want to pay out the welfare. We have 1.2 million. They can just starve, this sort of thing. We would instead rather dedicate this money to construction to give these people jobs so they can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. Okay, speaking of construction, the very first thing we are going to build with our construction is going to be about 80 construction sectors. And the places we want to build them is going to be determined as a result of local price considerations. Previously in 1.4, it didn't really matter. You wanted to build them where you knew you were going to be building a lot. You tended to build them in high population areas and areas where you were going to have resources. Now, it is ever more important to build them in areas you are going to have resources. The reason for this is about how local prices work. What local prices do is if you have way more buy orders or way more sell orders, it will move the price away from the market price. So you can see here in Shaanxi, we have way more sell orders of grain, and this actually pulls the local price down, which makes it so that anything that's producing grain in Shaanxi, like these wheat farms, is actually going to be less profitable because the price of grain is lower than it otherwise would be, and so this is going to be something that is going to hurt profits. What you want to do is you want to have the amount of buy and sell orders you have in a given area to be roughly equal. That way you will get close to market price, because anytime you have an excess, the price will be reduced, and you have an excess because you're producing a lot of it, and you would rather, if you're producing more of it than you're using, you would actually rather sell at a higher price, and this instead kicks us to a lower price. and vice versa, where if you are, consuming way more than you are producing, what you will have is the local price will be higher. So you can see here with the paper, we are consuming 82 and we are producing none, and so this pulls it instead towards equilibrium. And the amount this is pulled by is it is pulled by MAPI, which this is why MAPI is so important, because it affects how much we are disaffected by this mechanic. And so what will happen is we see that the MAPI, or market access price impact, here is 65%, which means 65% of the price will be determined just by our normal market price, how things worked in 1.4. However, that remaining 35% will be determined by the local price. And I think it's worth kind of maybe calling this the local price, and instead the price we pay the real price. So the real price we will be paying is going to be 35% based off the local price of the good, which is going to be, like, if we were completely cut off from the market, how much would it be? And so if we take a look at that paper again, the paper would be plus 75% if it were entirely determined by Shangzi's price. It would be plus 75% because there's more than double a consumption amount than there are sell orders. There's more than double the buy orders than sell orders, so you would get plus 75. So 35% of the price is informed by this plus 75 price, and the remaining, 65% of the price is informed by the market price of paper, which means we end up, which is plus 26% to be fair, which means that we are going to end up paying more for paper, that we are consuming here in our government administrations, which means we are incurring more costs than we otherwise would, because paper is inflated as a result of this MAPI. For example, if we had 95% MAPI, instead of paying, this plus 43% price, we would instead be paying considerably less, and we would be paying, closer to this plus 26% price, because this is what the market price is. And so the higher your MAPI, the higher your market access price impact, the more your prices will be informed by your market price, which is always preferable, because again, in Shangzi, whenever we are selling a whole bunch of stuff, we would actually rather the price be higher, but the MAPI, or the local price, deflates the price, and whenever we are buying in excess of something, we would actually the price be lower. Whenever we have, a negative balance, more buy orders than sell orders, we'd actually rather the price be lower. If you take a look at the wood, we are consuming wood. Where are we consuming wood? I guess we're consuming it for heating, so it's maybe not the easiest to illustrate, but if we come in here and we are consuming wood here in the furniture manufacturing, that we have to pay more for it here is going to negatively affect us, because the weekly balance is the output goods minus the input goods, and if you increase the price of the input goods, like we have in Southern Anhui, this is going to make the building less profitable. So you really, really care about getting your MAPI in order at the very start of the game, which is why we are going Romanticism, so we can get off of traditionalism as fast as possible by going agrarianism, and why our next tech is going to be stock exchange, even though we really want to industrialize, we really want water tube boiler, we really want railways, still we are going to try and get off of these MAPI considerations, or we are going to try and take care of these MAPI considerations first. So, coming full circle and talking about building, what does this mean for us? Well, our biggest expense, or one of our biggest expense, is actually going to be construction goods, especially when we swap to iron frame buildings. We want to consume and produce goods in the same states, and the tools will require steel, the steel will require coal and iron, the iron will require coal. We are going to be creating buy orders for iron, or for coal, when we produce iron, and we are going to be producing buy orders for iron when we use the iron frame buildings, and so we want this all in the same place. If we are producing the iron, in northern Manchuria, and then we are consuming it in southern Anhui, we will have to pay more for it as a result of local prices than if we were consuming it where we were producing it in northern Manchuria. So what this means is, in terms of our construction, we are going to want to construct in places that in particular are going to have both coal and iron. However, now in this new 1.5, or actually this was present in 1.4, construction sectors are going to cost infrastructure, so we are also going to have to spread things out. And so what we are going to do is we are going to sort by infra, and we are just going to kind of take a quick eyeball of this, and then we already know where all the iron is, iron and coal is. We're going to put 10 construction sectors down in Shaanxi. They have iron and coal. We're going to put another 10 down in Yunnan, because Yunnan has a very, high amount of infrastructure available. We're going to put 10 down here as well. And then we're going to put 5 down in a whole bunch of places that we know have both coal and iron. That way, now Beijing also has coal and iron now. But we're going to put it in southern Manchuria, northern Manchuria. Outer Manchuria has a little bit less labor, but they are also going to have both coal and iron. We are also going to put it down in Beijing, Hebei, and this is kind of a lot of the early places. We do have new coal and iron up here, but we don't have anywhere near as much labor, and that's okay. But this is kind of the main initial salvo we are going to have coming out, and then we are actually going to be moving the capital to Jiangxi, because this is the most populous state that we have. It does not have both coal and iron. However, we will just produce steel here anyways. We will have the coal input, and it will be relatively good. And I just wanted to emphasize, we are going to be less disaffected by Mappy here because of the Yangtze River, which is going to flow through, which is really a huge buff to China. Let's come back. We're going to take a quick look at other places. We are producing a ton of construction sectors in all of these places, but we're going to take a quick look around and see if there's maybe a couple other places we want to add construction sectors, because we want to add a few more than 54. Okay, so we're also going to add a few in Hainan, which, while it doesn't have iron, it does have coal and sulfur, so it can produce explosives very effectively, and it has this 5% mapping. We're going to also add in Sichuan. They are going to be bedding from the Yangtze River, and they have, a lot of logging, sulfur, coal mines. And then we're also going to be adding in Guizhou, which has an enormous amount of logging camps. Logging camps are one of the very best things early on, and so we are going to be adding 5% in each. They do not have access to, a 5% mapping, but overall this will be okay. So we're going to add in Guizhou, Sichuan, and I think Hainan was what we said here, and this will be kind of about how many we want to add. Nice. It is going to be 69 here. We can add a couple in Monan as well. It's going to have iron and coal, it doesn't have iron and coal. Just kidding. We didn't mean it. Never meant to think of it. And so this will be pretty good. Now, once we get this we were going to want to expand as quickly as possible all these wooden frame constructions, because on a per construction basis, it's much faster to go wood frame and then swap iron. Once we get all of these done, we're probably going to try and swap iron, and we're probably going to import in order to facilitate this. Now, normally you don't want to do this. Normally you don't want to lean on imports of your construction goods. However, money is going to be much less of an issue for us, and what's going to matter for us is our velocity, our ability to wind this up. And so we are going to want to import construction goods for switching on iron frame buildings, at least initially. And then once we get there, then we are going to swap, one construction sector area at a time, one of these level 5s. And once we get onto this, then with that additional construction, we will start producing the goods that we need in order to be self-sufficient in terms of this iron frame building. And this is going to be what's going on in terms of the background for our construction. We are just ramping it up really fast with the wood. Then we are, using imports to facilitate iron frame buildings, and we're going to look to swap them all to iron. And if we are still running a positive balance at that point, or not running a deficit, then we will look to add more construction at that point, or kind of mix it in, sprinkle it in as we go. Now, we start out with a bunch of states unincorporated. We're going to look to incorporate all of them. They're not a very large portion of our economy, because almost all of the population is here, but just wanted to point out that this is a very important modifier that we are going to be experiencing in terms of local prices. If we take a look, we actually have 55% MAPI here, and the reason is that there's a minus 10% penalty from a state being unincorporated. So we're just going to incorporate these. We will have a slight bureaucracy deficit, but once we get off no social security, we'll just have a ton of excess bureaucracy, so it's really not a big deal. Notably, you are going to see that we have insufficient tax nearly everywhere in terms of our tax capacity. You do not actually want to build government administrations to handle this tax capacity capacity unless you are running a deficit of bureaucracy. And so what this means for us is we are not going to try and, get rid of this negative tax until we are running negative bureaucracy, although not in this case because we're about to get a ton. And then once we run negative bureaucracy, then we want to build it where we have a tax malus, but we do not want to actively build it to try and decrease the tax. This will cost us more than it will return us in terms of net, and so this is why we don't want to approach it in this way. For our diplomacy, we are improving relations with Russia and the UK. This will help us overall in long term, especially UK cannot declare war on us if we have positive relations, although we probably won't be able to reach that as a result of the opium war we are about to have. We have decreased the government wages. They start out a little high, and we are running 3 consumption taxes that all target the upper strata pops. We do not want to do ones that target the lower strata pops, so while we will get more per authority on liquor, is really not going to be helpful. And then as soon as we start running, anywhere near negative balance, we're going to look to just ratchet up taxation level. We're just not going to put it in now. You see we have 200k to work with. This is why we wanted to start expanding the construction sector so quickly, and why we're not building anything else. And you'll notice we're floating excess authority. We do want to float 100% excess authority. This is going to give us a minus 25% enactment time, which stacks additively with this other modifiers that are giving minus enactment time. And since we are over 90% legitimacy, or 90 legitimacy, we will also get minus 25% enactment time. So the first one gave us minus 25%, but the next one effectively gives us minus 33%, because we will end up having minus 50% total enactment time. If you get events that allow you to get even more, you will get really, really fast law passes, and so we will just be able to go very quickly through the no social security, and then probably towards professional army, given that it seems to be the case that they've nerfed peasant levies enough that we're not going to really want to implement it, and maybe we try and go back to it. Notably, we will always, as China, have an easier or not always, if things go horribly wrong, we will have an easier time maintaining high legitimacy as a result of the unique building, the Forbidden City, probably one of the best in the game, giving plus 20 legitimacy from including the head of state and government here. Notably, also in Beijing, we get access to a very strong company. So let's pull up the Chinese companies. So China has 4 unique companies here: the Kaiping Mining Company, the Hanyang Arsenal, the Fu Chao Shipyard, and the Djenne Kilns. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that one. Notably, the kilns aren't very good. This one is a little bit interesting because plus port max level is not a very common modifier, but again, it's not going to be very good. Specifically shrapnel artillery offense, not just artillery offense, or this, maybe this applies to all of them. This is an interesting modifier, but overall, I don't think this is going to be very good, because what you want is you want to have industries in your companies that you are going to have a lot of buildings for. You're not going to really have very many shipyards or military shipyards. You're not going to have a lot of arms industries and ammo plants. The benefit you get is largely this construction bonus and this throughput bonus, and so a smaller proportion of the amount of construction you're dedicating to these buildings, the less useful this is going to be. And while Glassworks is decent, the prosperity bonus here is not anything necessarily to write home about. However, the Kaiping Mining Company is one of the very best in the game. This is because throughput is extraordinarily good on railways, because railways don't normally have throughput, and throughput has diminishing returns, right? If I already have a throughput of 100% and I get an additional 20%, right, or plus 100% and I get an additional 20%, what that will end up, it'll effectively be a 10% increase off of what I have. If I have 0 extra throughput and then I get a 20%, it'll be a 20% increase. And so railways, since they don't benefit from economies of scale, they are going to be extremely good to have it in. Also, constructing railways faster, getting the 35% construction bonus is going to be really good, because it's important to note that not everything has the same construction times. Railways are an 800 construction building, and so even if you have less railways than, other buildings, you're probably going to be spending a lot more construction overall on railways, and so benefiting from this will be really good. It also has coal mines in it attached to it, which is going to make it way easier to get the prosperity bonus, but also minerals, mineral resources are generally kind of the best things to have companies for a variety of reasons. You really want a high percentage of your economy to be it, and so this is one of the very few companies that has railway plus resource, and so we are going to really look to lean into it, and the technology spread will actually do quite nicely with what we have going on. We will probably have technology spread malices from various areas, one of them just being unrecognized, although we'll probably get recognized pretty quick, and so this is going to benefit us a lot because we are really going to be relying on technology spread to catch up with our technologies. And, if you are playing someone other than Qing, it's still a good idea to take Beijing in order to unlock this company. If we take a look at the company here, right, we can establish it if any one of our states is Beijing or Hebei. Beijing is Beijing, and it has coal mines greater than or equal to level 10, and you have steam donkey and railways researched. And so these are going to be the requirements we have. And so this is, Beijing now has coal, right? It didn't have coal before. And so this is going to, taking Beijing will not only unlock one of the very best companies in the game and give you it'll also give you the Forbidden City. It will also give you an enormous amount of population. If you are taking it, obviously we already start with it, so it's not a problem for us. And I think it has to be, does it have to be incorporated? It also has to be incorporated. So 20-year incorporation, but we don't have to worry about that because, of course, it's our city. It's our state. So for our very first open, we have reduced the autonomy of Korea here, which will now reduce them to being a vassal of ours. And the next thing we are going to do is we are going to try and accumulate as much infamy as possible because we will go for 5 years, not wanting to declare any wars. And so we will look to make a tributary out of Dainam, which is going to be the most expensive thing we could do. We could try and annex. We could, it looks like they won't accept anyways. There's no chance, no shot, no how, and so we will look to make tributary of them here. We have also moved our declared interest from North India and Japan over to North Germany and France because we will want to be importing artillery pieces, likely, and also here in Indochina, this interest will go, it will become a native interest, but also we will be losing an interest with the Opium Wars. Now, just a reminder, you do want to see what you are tech spreading, and it looks like we still have to wait to the end of the week, and once we hit the end of the week, once we hit the Monday, we will figure out what we're tech spreading. We see that, hey, look, we get lucky, good old-fashioned luck. We are now natural spreading romanticism here. So this means we do not actively want to actively research this. Instead of actively researching it, what we are going to actively research is stock exchange. We know we'll get romanticism relatively quickly, a little bit slower than if we actively researched it. And so maybe we even would want to consider still actively researching it anyways. It is very important, but this way we will get over onto railways and atmospheric engine a little bit faster, which is going to help because the railways will allow us to build tall, in particular in the states where the mappy looks good. So we get the opium crisis, which is kind of one of the critical features of a, start for the Great Qing. We will click we have to do something, and then they will respond, and what we will get after this is we are going to get a journal option to ban the opium trade. We are not going to do that. Wow, do they really side here? Okay, well this changes things a little bit, but we'll talk through the overall strategy here, as it relates to what we want to do. We see that they side with Dainam, so this is going to make it very difficult for us to enforce on Dainam. And what they want is a Xiaozhou treaty port. And so this will be very difficult to enforce on Dainam, and this changes things quite a bit. So we're going to talk through how you traditionally want to win the Opium Wars. Normally what you want to do, and this is what we were planning on doing, is there's kind of 3 ways to approach this. We were going to do 2 out of 3, but now we can't move the capital because we're already into play. Normally, Jiangxi long-term is going to actually be the best place to have your capital anyways, and by moving your capital inland, you make yourself less susceptible to being navally landed by the UK. However, if you have a front that is not if you have a front that is not on, if you already have a front, they are less likely to land you. So a common strategy, in addition to moving your capital inland, which is a good strategy, you can move it in really far to like Djenne, which is, former capital, shout out to Djenne. A strategy is to declare war on Portugal instead. So you get a front, you pile a whole bunch of armies just defending where Portugal is, and this allows you to, just wait them out, and then you use one little naval landing, you naval land Singapore, although in testing it was easier for us to land over here, so we're probably going to land over here. But this is kind of the two things you can do. And the third is, this has been long fightable if you really, really aggressively swap to importing artillery. And what we are going to do with kind of the new system, we can now conscript a whole bunch of artillery. And so what we will do is we will add an enormous amount of conscripts that are artillery. Artillery notably has 15 defense, which is much better than the, 10 defense here, and so this will help out quite a bit for giving us a lot of defense. What we can do is we can facilitate this, or we can afford this, or we can make it work because we have moving interests, and we are going to be moving interests over to North Germany and also into France, as we tried to do earlier. We already have this play declared, so we don't mind losing this interest, and so this is going to be how we enforce on these guys. Or not enforce, this is how we are going to develop additional trade routes with North Germany and France. We're also going to lean on Russia to try and get these. So these are the three strategies as it normally works. You move the capital inland, you declare on Portugal, and you can kind of just fight it with just cannons, and things are a little bit different in 1.5. The UK really sucks at naval landings, and it's kind of a bit of a roll, but here we will have a front, so they will probably do less naval landings. But what we are going to do now is we are going to add a ton of conscripts to every single one of our armies of cannon and artillery. We are going to mobilize all these guys, and we are going to switch all these guys to defend. We are going to switch them to defend front, and what they will get with defend front is they will get an additional 10% defense. They won't be able to push as easily, and we are also going to make sure that we have a decent-sized armies ready to kind of intercept landings. So probably 2 of these 40 stacks, we will conscript up 30 or so cannon artillery and just leave them at home, and everyone else we will assign to the front and have them on defend, and we will look to kind of enforce this very, very slowly. Now, because the UK has already joined against us, now we're going to ban the opium trade, and as soon as we're at peace, after 5 years of being at peace, we notably have to be at peace, the opium crisis will end, and so, kind of hovering over here, 5 years, the country has to be at peace. And so we have to, we have to ban the opium thing, but we have to be at peace for 5 years, unless they've changed this. True for a total of 5 years. Great Qing is at peace. And so this is a critically important aspect of this. And so we will be fighting this a little bit different than standard, but I did want to mention these are kind of the ways that the tools that you have as Great Qing in order to try and win the opium war. Notably, we're going to make sure we have guys to defend, and we're going to make sure we have cannon artillery on a ton of these guys. Okay, so what we've done, and let's see if we can scroll a little more. No, we can't. With our armies, we have mobilized all of them except for 5. We have the plain white banner we haven't mobilized. Haven't mobilized, haven't mobilized, haven't mobilized, haven't mobilized, haven't mobilized. None of these guys are mobilized yet, but everyone else is mobilized. They have cannon artillery, and we made sure to click the raise conscripts button. The smallest army we have, this 15 stack, we will be using to land the UK over here. And in terms of war goals, we are going to be putting in war reparations on the British, and also forcing recognition on the British here. This war is very likely to go off because as soon as Great Britain, kind of mobilizes, we will be able to get it in. But if they back down, if Dainan backs down, this is spectacular for us because especially if we get a truce with the UK here. I'm not sure exactly if we get a truce with the UK here. I believe we do, even if they back down, and so this will be spectacular for us. But other than that, we will be looking to just defend and wear them down. These other guys, we are going to mobilize and we're going to put on the fronts, but we are going to keep in mind we have not added any conscripts. That's because in the previous beta, the way it has worked is if you add any sort of conscripts, we'll use delaying tactics here. If you add any sort of conscripts, then you can't remobilize and re-add more conscripts after the fact, and so we are keeping 5 of these battalions. If things are going really poorly or starting to look kind of grim, we will put in like 50 cannon artillery on each of these guys and mobilize everything, and if it's not looking too bad, then we will just kind of chill with our current level of mobilization, which is quite high. Again, everyone's on defense. We're just going to defend on this front, and then we have 2 stacks. We have 2 stacks that are going to sit at home for in each of our major HQs, and these guys are going to be looking to defend against naval landings. And so overall, this is going to be a very expensive mobilization, but it should give us, a very, very consistent shot. It's not necessarily min-maxed because we're maybe spending more than we ought to, but we should have a very good shot at winning this war here. This is kind of a known problem with this iteration of the patch, where our subjects will push into impossible odds, but notably, the UK does not seem to be pushing into us, and so we just have to wait them out unless they are going to do a naval landing. You can see, again, our subjects are pushing in. This will give us a negative war score in terms of percentage of battles. We've lost 100% of the battles. We can't stop ourselves from losing 100% of the battles, but it looks like actually they're going to try and take a push in, and we are going to have huge numerical advantages whenever this happens. We see that we maybe don't have as much defense as we would like, but we have as many guys defending. We have these conscripts coming up, and it's going to take them forever to push from Dainam to their war goal, either the Shaozhou Treaty Port, which, to be fair, the Shaozhou Treaty Port is quite a bit closer, or to the capital. Will require them to push quite a bit, and so we are hoping to be able to slow them down, but maybe we need to make use of those additional conscripts. We also, as you can see, have a naval landing coming in here. Once we get in here, then we will be able to enforce both the war goals we have on Great Britain. I suppose we could have also taken Guyana, maybe this would have made sense, but recognize Great Qing and war reparations all just require we have a tiny bit of territory, and once we enforce on them, then we will be able to freely push into Dainam. I don't think we can really push into them right now, so we're just going to be stuck in on defense for a while. Yeah, so we are winning these battles where we have overwhelming odds, and they are suffering much the same problem as well, because Dainam is pushing into us. Dainam definitely can't push us, and so anytime Dainam loses a battle, the UK will lose all of the progress they've gained, and you can see here, huge numerical advantage here, and Dainam is pushing, and so it is going to be very, very difficult for them to make any forward progress, so they need to navally land us. However, in previous versions, we have yet to have a large enough sample on a 1.5. If you have a front, they don't like navally landing you, so they just stick in all their troops on the front, and if they do this, they'll never make any progress. This is reason why the Portugal strategy is strong, if they don't just randomly join a play with you. Also, notably, taking Dainam is, I think, going to be the new meta. Before, you used to go for Brazil, but I don't think you can swing it with just a landing fleet of 15 unless they just somehow back down from this, which I don't think they will. And so we will just continue, and we will watch as, there's a little bit of seesaw back and forth. I think that they will win occasionally some of these battles, but not enough, and we should be able to stick in this defense while we get our landing in so that we can enforce on these guys. Yeah, this front is going nowhere. Now, notably, we have brought our navy back here, just in case we need to re-land behind, and we probably could try to land, here in Tonkin, but we don't want to at this point. We want to decay down the UK more because we are decaying them below 0. We are decaying on the UK because we have all of their war goals, and so they are going to be more and more likely to capitulate, and as long as we have this front, it looks like the UK's not really trying to push us that much. You actually do see we get pushed in a little bit here. If this continues to move towards occupation, which it looks like we're raking back some of this territory, if we continue to get occupied, what we will do is we will raise cannons on those 5 units, but you can see they're pushing in and then we're just taking it right back. There's really kind of nothing doing. You see that we have lost 43% of the battles, so we're even winning more of the battles than we're losing, mainly because we're just on defense now. We have really big stacks. Our cannon artillery has come up, and while they do get in occasionally a little bit, the fact that Dainam is trying to push into us is actually really hurting them, and so we should be able to enforce on them. Once we've worn them down enough, or a little bit. Once it's looking like they really want peace, looks like the UK really wants peace here, now we might go for a little bit of a cheeky landing. So we're going to take this Gulf fleet, and we're going to see if we can sail past these guys here and these guys here, and maybe we will end up on this node, hopefully in the Gulf of Tonkin. I assume this is the node that is going to be the Tonkin node, and we are going to look to just land Tonkin with this little Inky Dinky 15 stack. It's going to take 3 weeks. Not a big deal. You can see it zipping over. Shout out to patch 1.5 where guys are now locally. Oh, it looks like, yeah, they're just going to clap our navy. So this is going to be a little bit of a tough one, but it looks like I think we can just wait out until the UK gets enforced, and then we will just switch all of our guys to pushing. But yeah, you see that they do manage to defend against this cheeky landing, which is, you know, fair enough. But the UK, there's nothing that's preventing them from getting decaying down even more and more, and eventually they will capitulate out, and then we'll just push in on Dainan. So, couple updates. We are now putting in iron mines. We're putting them in all the places we have construction sectors, and we have them on auto expand, and we will look to slowly ratchet these up as we, you know, continue to swap more and more of these over onto iron frame. In particular, I think in Hebei we have a decent amount, and also in southern Manchuria we also have a decent amount of iron, so swapping these places over specifically will be nice, but we want to try and avoid shortages, and so we will look to get underneath the shortage and then swap, underneath the shortage, swap, etc. We're also going to delete a ton of our military because we don't really need this much. We have nearly 500 barracks. We're going to look to wind this down to about 250, making sure to kind of, we are going to look to keep our hussars and mainly delete irregular infantry or just infantry because we will want to have a composition that's a mix of artillery and infantry anyways, and so by deleting down and we'll keep the hussars for doing landings, and they will be kind of relatively strong for us militarily once we unlock the ability to get off of hussars, which we will once we get you know, onto professional army. We will unlock the other unit types, which is going to be the brunt or the main you know, ability of our army, as we are going to be doing cuirassiers and lancers, stuff like this, where we will have a lot more offense and defense. In theory, we could do cuirassiers because we have, this gives us a decent chunk of defense as well, something like this, but we will have an army that's much proportionally higher on the hussars as we get rid of a lot of these irregular infantry. It looks like our war goal to make Dynama tributary actually got bricked as a result of us becoming recognized, so that's a bit unfortunate, but I guess we'll just continue on. Just keep that in mind for your plays. A bit strange, not used to that one, but we will also be declaring some interest in some areas. Why don't we do a little bit in Japan? We're going to do North India. We already have one in Indonesia. Where else would we like one? I suppose something like this, maybe. Actually, we can't colonize just yet, so why don't we maybe try and piggyback one of these wars that happens in Arabia as a result of, you know, Egypt and Egypt and the Ottomans fighting. So once they start fighting, we might be able to sway our way in and, you know, look to expand in kind of the normal places. We're still consolidating the military. We've deleted over 100 battalions, but we're still looking to get it down. We'll maybe try and get it down to about 300. Maybe that's a little bit of a better number, but this frees up money that we can instead dedicate to construction, which will be much more useful for us, at least at this point in the game. We are starting to hit our first infrastructure issues. We can handle it if it's on the coast by adding ports, and if we can also swap on over the urban centers to gas streetlights. We have put in import routes, but we're also going to, you know, put in auto expand on the coal that we have available in these places where we've turned it on. We will look to slowly ratchet this up, but once we have enough coal, we'll turn on all the urban centers PMs, because these are quite efficient and they're quite profitable, but right now still focused on as fast as possible expanding construction. So after stock exchange, which gives us the notable 10% mapping, we are going to research atmospheric engine, but we're only going to research it about halfway, and then we will finish cotton gin and lathe. By doing this, we guarantee that we will get research in on atmospheric engine. If we went cotton gin and lathe, then we would nat spread something else, and it's completely random and wouldn't necessarily be atmospheric engine. By locking in kind of our research on atmospheric engine. We can get it a little bit faster. We just have to, because what's going to happen is as these researches complete, we will get cheaper atmospheric engine, and so we don't want to research it all the way before these auto-complete, but we do want to get it a little bit faster. Notably, lathe is going to be a little bit above average for us, but I still think this is worth doing because we are going to be emphasized, kind of in this, in terms of our, what we are doing in terms of the research. We are going to be really, or in terms of our overall construction, we really, really want to get on that atmospheric engine pump, which notably is going to give us capitalist ownership in our buildings, which is going to help the capitalists come on up, because currently merchant guild owned, and we definitely want to move to being capitalist owned here. Notably, Russia's really interested in our province of Tomsk, which, while it's not like terrible province, we can trade up, as it were. It's got a little bit of resources. We can trade up for Alaska, which gold will appear there. They're willing to trade. This is using the new trade states mechanic here in patch 1.5, and I'm pretty sure this is worth it given that Alaska has a decent chunk of gold. However, it will probably make the US a little bit more aggressive towards us. Notably, also, it does give us a native interest here in the Pacific coast, which is going to be quite nice in case we want to intervene against the US, intervene against the US when they go for Mexico. We will actually put in, some interests here, because if Mexico is willing to transfer a state to us, this would be tremendously useful for us, and so we will go that route and maybe try and defend them against the USA as they go for them, which we are expecting soon. This is kind of what's informing our diplomatic interests. We can't expand yet because we have to wait for the opium crisis here to time out, and so we will also be adding some universities here in Beijing. Beijing's the capital. We decided to keep it the capital. You can move it to Jiangxi. This is probably the better capital long term, but we do want to build universities in the capital. We notably also are going to, for a long time, have a really depressed literacy because we can't pass any school law because both the Confucian scholars and the literati hate it. And so what we will do is, for the sake of qualifications, we will actually build a level 1 university in all the states that we have going up that are going to be, we have a decent amount of construction in. This way, it will help smooth things out. Normally, or at least in patch 1.4, you didn't want to do this, but qualifications are harder to come by in patch 1.5, and so we will, just be kind of slotting down a few of these universities in these areas where we have construction sectors just to smooth things out. The first university is going to add, percentage, and it's effectively diminishing returns. So we're just going to build a level 1 university in a bunch of these places, and then we are going to look to push the university in the capital up to economies of scale. Of course, are a little bit constrained right now by the infrastructure thing, which is why we're building more ports there in order to help facilitate this. So we have unfortunately hit a bit of a snag here in that if I unpause the game, there's just this critical date at which the game just crashes. I believe this is the result of a bug that's kind of already known and the devs are working on. It's probably going to be patched out in the next few days, but the way it works is, what I'm assuming it's related to is our reorganizing of our armies is leading to this game-breaking crash, and so progress cannot be made. I've tried loading from earlier saves in this run. It's not like I had really was saving very frequently or anything like this, and I just can't get it to work. Maybe once it's patched, we will be able to continue this run. However, I do think this is enough to kind of get you started. Just if you are playing on the current iteration, I guess do not reorganize the armies at all, or do not, delete the armies and merge the armies and this type of thing, which is what we have been doing, which I think is leading to the crash. So, but let's discuss, where we were going with this over the next few years, because I did want to get to the point, or I was planning on getting to the point where we would finish the opium crisis. So no wars declared until the opium crisis is over, and then we kind of are in good shape, and then we can enact free trade later once this is in. So this was the plan, and also what we're going to be doing is specifically we were going to look to push in Beijing this university up to level 21, which is the max throughput. We would gain the max throughput from economies of scale there, which would more than take us to the cap research. Now this research cap is direct research. Anything that goes over this cap overflows and instead is implied to technology spread, which is going to be something we are heavily reliant on throughout this run. But the cost of the university is, what is it? How should I say? It is a fixed cost. One individual university is kind of fixed. However, the benefits, or they go up in price, the cost is linear. But the benefits of universities is exponential in that new technologies, say, for example, and this is why you build a lot of universities as Great Qing. Specifically, when we get atmospheric engine, we will get the atmospheric engine pump, which is going to allow us to output double the iron in exchange for a little bit of coal and tools. The reason this is so good, or the reason why this is going to be exponentially useful, is the bigger our economy is, the more mines we have, the more valuable this technology is. But the cost of technology is linear in that it requires the universities. And so what we will be doing is we will be very aggressively pushing up the unis. Normally for most countries, I like to wait until about 200 construction before pushing up the unis. We're already at it here. And so we are going to start on that, specifically getting up to 21 here. So the rest of what we're going to be doing is looking to swap the rest of our construction sectors onto iron frame buildings. We already have several on iron frame, but once we do this, we'll be at around 300-400 construction, something like this. We can look to push it even more. We would maybe want to delete down a little bit more military. We're at 305. We wanted to kind of target 250 to 300, somewhere in this range, but this is going to be good. And so it will be just focusing on economies, specifically building up where we have both iron and coal, as we mentioned before, because of local price considerations. We are going to be starting to run out of infrastructure, though, especially, places on the coast will be especially nice because we can add ports, but we have already added several ports in Beijing, and then, once we build the universities up to 21, we're probably no more building in Beijing until we get onto railroads. So the technology is we are going to be going towards railroads. Once we hit around half with atmospheric engine, we'll switch to lathe, and as far as society tech goes, we're about to finish Nat spreading Romanticism. We're kind of on our way, and that would be kind of the main law we're looking to pass on the back of this, because again, we are getting so much investment pool contribution currently from the aristocrats that agrarianism is actually going to be pretty good for us. It's going to be a good shout. If we look at the investment pool and how much it's growing, the weekly change plus 38k, plus 100k, the reinvestment nearly 90k is coming from these sub-rice paddies. And we would boost this by 50%, without taking any more money from our pops. This is an absolute insane, level of difference. This is going to be very, very strong for a very long time, being on agrarianism. It's actually preferable. Like, if we could choose swapping between agrarianism right now and swapping to laissez-faire right now, we would choose agrarianism. So it'd be mainly this peaceful building up, mainly focusing on, once we get kind of the unis going, we're mainly going to be building iron, specifically with the sensitivity to building iron in places where we also have coal, and so that's going to be stuff like Shaanxi, and also being sensitive to the fact that, we are running out of infrastructure in places, so we would build in Shaanxi, northern Manchuria, a little bit in Yunnan, a little bit in Shaozhou. Specifically, we can push up, in the coastal places, we can push up the infrastructure at least a little bit. So places like Shaozhou, even though there isn't iron here, we will probably start building iron mines up a little bit here, click it in an auto expand, maybe add some construction there too. But outer Manchuria, we can build up. We don't have any ports there currently. We can get up to level 7 courtesy of this, and this is mainly what we'll be focused on. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with this run. If this save file is just completely bricked, what we will do is we will do another off-screen kind of start, much in the same fashion and getting the same way, and we will continue that into a run. But we're hoping that once this gets patched, we will be able to just load this save and continue on from here. I hope this has been useful or entertaining. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and other than that, have a good day.